You guys want to come back up? And maybe just invite the executive committee to come back up for the closure. So if you do want to share any final remarks. So we are to the end of the day, and this is when we typically do a short little session to crystallize on points that we've made. We'll spend about 20 minutes doing that, and then we are going to adjourn to the reception and to more networking. I'm going to kick things off with some things that I learned, and I hopefully resonates with many people in the room. First, I think it's been hugely helpful to be down here in the Inland Empire and learn from the people that live here and that are managing these landscapes. These are incredible landscapes, from the huge Mojave Desert to these precious montane forests. There are real challenges, including just a tremendous amount of invasive flashy fuels. And this is all landscapes that have essentially suffered from a lack of attention or focus from state government in the past. To me, there were great examples of where projects have worked in the Inland Empire. I thought that was a really compelling panel this morning to show how communities were saved by the projects that many of the groups here today put on the ground. I think those are important proof points. To me, I'll also conclude that the regional partnerships are really strong, that a lot of what we hoped could evolve from this task force and from the Regional Forest and Fire Capacity Program have evolved here. These multi-government, multi-community, tribal partnerships. And we heard from Jeff that the pipeline of funding projects, which are really one of the key milestones of those partnerships, are in place. So what are the needs? Clearly more funding. We recognize that. We heard some promising developments, including major leadership from Caltrans stepping up down here as a model for the rest of the state and a transportation network. We heard of a visionary water agency making the investment, and hopefully a model for the rest of the state. And conservation funders from the Irvine Ranch Conservancy, a nonprofit, but even the Wildlife Conservation Board, a state agency that funds wildlife conservation, made a grant last month for essentially fuels reduction in the Truckee area for the benefit of landscape conservation. So we are diversifying these sources of funding, but we need to continue to diversify them. And that really brought us to the last panel, is really connecting the dots and making the economic case for durable funding to achieve the scale that we need to achieve. As Supervisor Cottrell pointed out, the power of that slide around the debt of activity that we have on the landscape requires moving faster and more broadly. And we need to do that through more durable funding. I'm hopeful that we're going to have another major slug of funding through this climate bond and Prop 4. But again, it's an episodic, when I say episodic, a non-continuous source of funding, and we need to build more durable funding streams to fund this work. I continue to think one area we have not cracked the code on is truly unleashing wood utilization and all the economic benefits of this vegetation that is rotting in the forest and creating fire risk right now. So that remains continued challenge. But I'm optimistic that with this last panel that we are connecting the dots, and I want to see these models, these pilots succeed by bringing more beneficiaries together to fund these projects. And then I thought it was great to have Will's leadership on the panel, and let's center ourselves in, yes, this can be complicated. Yes, this involves technology and finance, but we have to do this in a way that really recenters us to these traditional practices that we know took care of California for so long. I do look forward to and future discussions of this task force, really digging in a little bit more on the insurability issue. I think we discussed that in a pretty fulsome way in Marin County at our last regional meeting, but more and more as we talk about the cost of not moving fast enough, insurability and insurance costs are critical. So I'm hoping that while it's not our central lane, we can bring that into the discussion, because I think the task force and its members have a lot to add to that. So those are some top-line thoughts off the top of my head, but I want to invite others to share any concluding thoughts.
Well, so today was humbling, right? and energizing at the same time. It's energizing because it wasn't talk about things that could be done theoretically. It was talk about things that are being done and still can be done. And that creates this pathway to the future. And one of the things I heard a few times today was this dream big conversation. And I unfortunately have a proclivity to dream big, sometimes way too big. And I sit here today and I go back to this time where I was at a meeting and somebody asked me what success would look like at the end of the day. And my response was, well, it's not going to be tomorrow, but at some point in the future, being able to have a family not think that they absolutely need their go bag at their front door from June 15th through the end of October. I mean, that's not how we should be living necessarily, and yet we can't ever remove risk. We live in a fire-dependent ecosystem, but we can change what that risk looks like. We can change how our homes are set up, and what I heard today was some major steps towards that goal. And yet what I also heard is that it's not the Forest Service alone or CAL FIRE alone or any agency alone that's going to get us there. It's all of us pulling and working in one direction, but it's that proclivity to action that gets us there. It's that movement to think big and move big and bring the funding together to do it. And so to me, I'm energized. I want to continue to go back and move, and so I see a future there. Anyway, thank you.
I think I would just add to that is for better or for worse, I've spent my entire public service career in collaborative interagency processes, which can be wonderful and can also be deflating. Because by their very nature, collaborative processes are messy and difficult. You got a lot of interests to juggle. And so as a result of that, progress tends to almost always be incremental. And I remember talking to a couple people last week and saying how different today's moment is. What we heard today from Southern California isn't incremental progress, it's transformational. And Wade reminded us of that in some internal meetings last week, where he said, I'm not interested in incremental progress, and the governor isn't interested in incremental progress. Look at the suspension. Look what we pulled off this last year. We took a very complicated, well-meaning permitting process, and we completely transformed it. We can do that again. And so that's what I take from today is the transformational process Southern California made. How can we as a task force help take that to the rest of the state and do that at the state level? So thank all of you out there who have been part of this truly transformational process. It's been really inspiring for me.
Maybe I'll start down here at the end and just build on some of that optimism. So a few observations from the day. Really appreciate the panels presenting this holistic wildfire prevention model. And like you said, heard from Wade and Jason, we're not talking hypotheticals here. We're talking about success, stuff that's happening on the ground here. And so it was great to see the model that we heard from the panelists down here. And so we have been on a journey the last 10 years, or as Will said it well, in a short window where things went to hell. And so in 10 years, look at how far we've come. Things have definitely, we have the urgency, but at the same time, we have the models, as we saw today. We have data. We have improvements in technology that continues to evolve at a massive scale. We have the tools, as we saw, that are getting utilized, whether it's additional flexibilities in some of our contracting for the federal agencies and the state agencies to get work done and provide more flexibility, whether it's the permitting flexibilities that the state has provided and that are soon we'll be hearing more from the federal agencies as far as additional streamlining goes on some of the fuels prevention. And so I am optimistic where things are going, and it's great to see that this stuff works. And really appreciate the panels and for all the energy that's going into that, and for the task force here in this environment that gives us the opportunity to network and take this other places and take some of these lessons learned other places. And the last thing I want to do is give a shout out to Jeff Hayes, if he's here. I really, on Jeff's map, he showed the yellow, of BLM lands, and I know a big focus is of forest, and so Jeff showed the yellow, and it's not that just vast of white. So there's, BLM lands play a large role. So appreciate that, Jeff. So, but yeah, thanks everyone.
Great. Well, I always leave these regional meetings with so many good notes and so many good takeaways. So thanks everyone for your time and attention. I think one thing that I would just highlight that I always take away from these regional meetings is the need for intentional elevation of community voices in these strategies, in these processes. I think that we heard a lot of really cool partnerships and really just elevating the need to make sure that community members are brought to the table and to the decision-making table as well. I also would just, highlight the need for state support for infrastructure, finance, and the biomass utilization as well. And yeah, this is just an incredible meeting. Really excited to be here and to continue to see the momentum. There's a lot of lessons learned, so thanks everyone.
Thank you, Abby, for bringing up the importance of community voices. I think that's a great point. I wanted to just share an observation from the first panel. I really appreciated spending some time with specific projects because I think whenever we drill down into specifics, we learn lessons that we can apply across our projects. So appreciate that. And then from the second panel, I love that we saw examples of two different collaboration models. We heard from Heather about a big tent, and then we heard from Michael about a more focused partnership group, and both are effective in different ways. And then this last panel, just being able to frame the importance of wildfire prevention work as important and as big a challenge as infrastructure work, and to think about the financing accordingly. And then, Secretary, where you started us off with the importance of durable funding and what we can do on biomass utilization, I think those are going to be good conversation items going forward, too.
Yeah, I just want to echo just the appreciation of everyone in the conversations had today. I've been involved with the task force for 3 years now, and really just seen the amount of progress that's been made. The first meeting that I participated in, it was like, we need to develop these regional partnerships. We need to be looking at the block funding. We need to be making these connections and these relationships. And obviously there's still so much more we have to do, but there's been so much progress made. And that's just thanks to everyone who's in this room, everyone who's out doing that work. And, a big theme that I'm taking away from today is really just how can we emphasize doing that as storytelling, whether it's with these local community projects, uplifting those voices, taking these metrics that are being developed, getting that story back onto the ground. What is the benefit? What is the savings? That's always one of those hard things of all this work we've done, this is what we've avoided. How can we tell some of those stories? And so really just looking forward at the next step, how we can better communicate that out to not just everyone in this room, but to those communities as well. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to start by thanking the team here for getting these panelists together, because it's just, excited doesn't say enough. I feel like I got a shot of adrenaline in my arm and I'm just ready to go. And mostly because I feel like, we talked about a lot of great projects that have been completed, and we talked about the benefits of those projects. And we also talked about kind of where we're going with this future analysis, and that's what really gets me excited. I actually got a message from one of the folks in the audience. She said, your leg won't stop shaking, because I was just so darn excited. And the reason I'm excited is because I really feel like that information is what will unlock the missing piece for us, right? Which I think is that local investment, or that sustainable funding, that durable funding, whatever you want to call it. It's really justifying our work. And so that's so important as we're moving forward. And I think it's going to be a key to getting the voters on board with supporting our efforts in what we're trying to accomplish here. Which, again, I think has just been kind of a missing piece, is that local investment complementing what's happening at the state. So thank you to the panelists. Thank you for you all being here, just spending your day with us. Just a wealth of information here. So thank you.
I always enjoy the opportunities to come to these meetings. One, because the interactions with all this real community that's truly statewide and even national that comes together to help us address these issues that we face in the state. You know, hearing today, coming down here, you know, I was kind of thinking, well, the last time I was in this region was at the time when the park fire broke out. I was actually at Big Bear the day that the park fire broke out in my own community in Butte County. And I thought, you know, like I'm looking forward to coming back, because when I was up there, I was thinking, man, this place is a tinderbox. But to be honest, and I'm going up there tomorrow, but I think like the thing that seeing these stories, like what is the work that's taking place? Who's involved in doing these things? And like the partnerships and seeing the success stories, really, while we're still at a fine-grained scale, I think we're on the right track. Can we get there fast enough, right? And so I think that's our homework, is that we have to find ways to get there faster. And one of those things that kind of resonates in my mind is, okay, well, who are all the partners that we're working with? I know there's a tremendous amount of effort that goes into making the outreach to different groups. Sometimes some of our partners aren't quite ready, but how do we bring them into the folds? You know, particularly thinking about like the tribal communities down here. When we first started with the Indigenous Stewardship Network, you know, we, as a regional fire force capacity grantee, the Inland Empire folks were like, hey, we really want to connect with our local tribes, you know, and so it was like, okay, well, how can we help them to do that? And, you know, some of them are ready for this work, some of them were not at the time, but I'm seeing now and hearing Will's, you know, conversation that more and more people are engaging in the space. My point of saying that is that, like, we have to be patient with one another, and we have to allow for that development to come on board, but it is the path that we have to take, and sometimes it's a little bit slow. I just wish we could get there faster sometimes. So yeah, it's been a great day though, and I think that I'll definitely take away, you know, the lessons learned, seeing the success stories, particularly, you know, in the images from this morning's talks were really fantastic, and so I appreciate that. Thanks.
Well, thanks. And I was driving here from the Ontario airport this morning, and I actually remembering one of the last times I was down here, which was 2 years ago when the governor and I attended funerals for 2 CAL FIRE firefighters that died in the line of service. And it brought me back to that somber moment, and just a reminder of what's at stake. You know, wildfire has been such a source of fear and discouragement in California, and for good reason, you know, and across the West. And I think with this task force, what we've done is we've channeled you know, that energy into fully confronting the crisis. And I feel like we're making great progress. I still think we have to do a lot more to help more Californians feel part of the solutions. As I said, I think everybody understands the problem statement and the risks. I don't think enough Californians understand what's happening, but also the role that they can play, and that, you know, different leaders in their community can play. So I think as we continue this really detailed, complex work in our working groups, I think we all have to, and this really speaks to everybody online and in the room, is think about bringing more people into these solutions, and more leaders and more sectors, because that's ultimately, I think, what it's going to take. Again, really thankful for everybody who's here today. If you're joining online, know that about 90% of the seats in the room are still full of people. If you go to these day-long conferences, you often probably experience the gradual petering out of people in the afternoon. But I think this speaks to the commitment that everybody has, and everybody's in this. And I thank everybody here who's in the room. I thank the couple hundred people who are joining online. Big appreciation for the University of Redlands for hosting us here today, to the Inland Empire RCD and the Inland Empire Community Foundation for really, you know, sponsoring or hosting us and organizing this. Our sponsors who actually chip in funding. It doesn't happen without our sponsors. Government doesn't put meetings together like this usually, and we can only do it because we've got all of these sponsors. And finally, big thanks to the presenters, the volunteers, our incredible task force staff, as well as our amazing partners, the IDEA Cooperative that puts together all the tech and all the fancy website and graphics and everything else. We've got amazing field tours tomorrow. I think if you polled most people that have done these regional task force meetings, they'll tell you that the highlight of the meetings are the tours. So excited for everybody who signed up for those. And again, please join us at the reception. The strength of this discussion involves the broad plenary discussion, but I really think the value is in the networks and ideas and partnerships that are developed through meeting new people. So hopefully you continue that into the evening. And with that, I think we're 4:42. Our reception starts in about 10 minutes, so feel free to stay here as long as you want, and then we'll make our way out the building to the left, up the way, and we'll have people directing us to the farm here on campus to celebrate with one another. Thank you so much.